Hey guys, the Sajid Dan 1 again here, back again with another new video for you guys, and today I'm back with another new episode of a Dan Chat. And on today's episode of Dan Chat, we're going to be covering a recently released first-person dungeon crawler RPG on the PS Vita, and honestly one of the very first-person dungeon crawlers on the system, and it's actually a true gem here on the Vita, and that is Demon Gaze, published by NIS America and developed by Katakabo Games. So in today's episode, we're going to be checking out Demon Gaze. Now, the story of Demon Gaze is very straightforward and very basic. It's just kind of an underlying story to kind of motivate you to play through this game, but ultimately this is one of those games that you're going to play more for the actual gameplay mechanics of it and the actual enjoyable experience of a dungeon crawler. But it does have a story, and the basic story is that you're this unique kind of breed of a, I guess, being, and you're called a gazer, and you're a demon gazer, and you have this unique ability with your own gaze to trap the souls of demons. And that's kind of the whole premise. Is there's like multiple demons in this vast world, and you're trying to trap the souls and collect all the souls of all the demons. There's an interesting mechanic that once you actually capture these demon souls, you can actually use them in battle, and they actually all have their own unique mechanics. Like certain ones will let you walk across like certain traps or hazards and certain things like that to explore more of the dungeons. And the other part of the story is that you're kind of trapped into this kind of debt, and you're kind of oldest girl named Fran, and she kind of brings you into her establishment and gives you a room and all this and provides food and stuff like that. And you're kind of, every time you go out to kind of explore dungeons, when you come back she will collect rent from you. So she's always collecting money from you for your own, kind of living expenses. So you're ultimately trying to collect demon souls to kind of give back to her to pay off like a debt. And then once you clear your debt, you can kind of focus more on just like capturing more of the demons and stuff like that. And it does have this interesting mechanic that you can add more party members, and they kind of come into the inn as well. And there's a lot of interesting characters in the inn, but that's kind of the basic underlying premise to Demon Gaze. Honestly, it doesn't really develop too much. The story in these kind of games is usually something as like a motivator. It's a motivator to kind of keep you going, but ultimately what's going to keep you going is the enjoyable experience of playing a first-person dungeon crawler. And that kind of segues into the actual gameplay for Demon Gaze. Like I mentioned before, it is a first-person dungeon crawler, so it takes place in these kind of dungeons that you move in kind of directions, and you explore these vast dungeons, and you get into random encounters. Now, the premise to the dungeons themselves in Demon Gaze has this core mechanic where there's what they call these demon circles, and these demon circles are scattered like all throughout. There'll be like 7 or 8 of these, and they'll be scattered all throughout the dungeon, and you have to claim them because they're unclaimed at first, but you have to claim them by like placing certain gems on these demon circles to summon monsters. But sometimes you'll summon like the main demon from the like labyrinth itself, but you're trying to take control of all of these demon circles, and once you can do that, that will engage a boss fight with the actual main demon from the area. So once you take control of all the demon circles, it'll trigger an event, and it'll allow you to be able to challenge the main demon for that area and try and trap their soul. So that's a really interesting mechanic, just kind of exploring, and you can always revisit these demon circles to kind of level grind and get unique items and stuff like that from it. It just handles so well. It has a unique mechanic, almost similar to Demon Souls or Dark Souls. If you're familiar with the messaging system in those games, it has a messaging system in here too, where you can leave notes. You can leave notes in these labyrinths, and the notes are kind of predetermined. So like you can't like literally type out a note. You have to use all these set like kind of collections of words and phrases and put together a message. And it's really helpful because some people will turn you on to secrets and all that, because there are like secret paths and secret doors that you can't see unless you know where they're exactly located. There's treasure to collect and unique monsters to fight. But it's kind of funny too, because some of the messages honestly became a little bit weird and perverted as you go along, because there's some really strange messages, and it's absolutely funny at times what some people write. But at the core of it, it's also a turn-based RPG. So if you're familiar with first-person dungeon crawlers, it's usually a turn-based RPG mechanic where you have 5 characters in this game, and you can switch the rows of them front and back. and you kind of add party members and you could choose their classes. So it has a class-based system where you can choose from a wide variety of classes. Each class has strengths and weaknesses, and you kind of use them and level up their stats individually. So it's all about building a kind of optimum party to get you through the game. So that's an interesting mechanic. Like I mentioned before though, it has this really interesting mechanic that once you trap the souls of these demons, these really strong demons too, you can use them in battle. So you can kind of open them up and allow them to fight alongside you. There is this mechanic though that you can't leave them out for too long. If you leave them out on the field for too long during a long battle, they'll kind of turn on you and they'll get into this, what they call rage mode, and they'll just start attacking anyone. So it's really dangerous, so you kind of got to manage that. Certain demons have certain unique like battle skills that they can use, and overall it's just really beautifully and really wonderfully crafted first-person dungeon crawler. All the gameplay mechanics that you expect from a first-person dungeon crawler are really well crafted and really enjoyable in this. So now it's definitely worth mentioning the presentation in Demon Gaze. Demon Gaze absolutely has a wonderful art style. It's kind of got like this sketchy, kind of like super colorful style, and all the unique characters are just like super hyper stylized. The character design for, you know, the classes and that you can choose from, and the portraits, like character portraits that you can choose from, are absolutely wonderful. They're just so vast and so detailed. They're just wonderful character design. Even the monster and enemy design is just absolutely wonderful. And so seeing some of the depictions and the character designs for the actual main demons is really awesome. Some of the demons look super cool, and it's just a very visually appealing game. So it's a visual feast to look at, and I just love the art design in this game is fantastic. The music as well is pretty solid and pretty catchy for the most part. It's got some kind of vocal tracks in there at some points, and some really straightforward kind of tunes when you're exploring the dungeons. There's not a huge selection of music that's offered throughout the game. Some of it is repeated and all that, but the music that is there is quite enjoyable. So at the end of the day, Demon Gaze is a very enjoyable first-person dungeon crawler RPG. It'll definitely appeal to fans of the genre, and for a console like the PS Vita, which doesn't really have any first-person dungeon crawlers, and this being one of the first ones, it's actually really stellar, and I commend Kadokawa Games for making a really stellar, straightforward first-person dungeon crawler with some just enough unique mechanics in there to keep it fresh and interesting. So if you are a fan of first-person dungeon crawlers, do not miss out on this game on the Vita, and that is Demon Gaze. It will definitely appeal to fans of the genre. It is a challenging game, keep that in mind. It does pack a considerable challenge, but you actually can change the difficulty. But it's just a wonderful first-person dungeon crawler on the PS Vita, and I highly recommend it for fans of dungeon crawlers, and that is Demon Gaze for the PS Vita. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dan Chat. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.